There you go. All right, so critically ill patients. You're going to deal with critically ill patients. You're also going to watch people die. Things to avoid. Don't say sad, grim statements. Orient the patient and the family to what's going on and what you're doing, and always be honest. Worst thing you can say is it'll be okay, because it's likely not going to be. But always allow for hope. That makes sense? All right, any questions? So things to look for, like we talk about scene size up, scene safety, DSI. What are we talking about? Talking about things that'll kill you. So hazardous materials. That's a long list of things you guys will be taking your intro to hazardous materials on your own time. It includes all kinds of hydrocarbon, radioactive stuff, weather flammable stuff, gases, lots of stuff. Electricity is very dangerous. It's very useful, but it's also very dangerous. Fire, traffic collisions. One of the biggest things, the number one thing that kills EMS, fire, and law enforcement, people always think it's, oh, big structure fires, shootings, criminals, things like that. It's not. It's car accidents. When you're at the scene of a car accident, what caused the car to crash that you're responding to is still there. So it's likely another car will crash. You're going to see endless videos in this class of being at scenes of car wrecks and then other car wrecks happening while you're at the scene of a car wreck. So you have to constantly be watching for. Weather, as you're going to find out tomorrow, late tonight, can be brutal and devastating. Violent situations that can escalate. And of course, behavioral emergencies, which actually don't usually turn into violent situations, but always have the potential. Any questions? Great example of a violent situation. Just because the scene is safe does not mean the scene will continue to be safe. Things will change in a moment. And as you'll see, Ariel will be videoing everything that you do all the time. There's a possibility she's under the influence of alcohol. Possible. What's that? No, it's police. There's no EMS here yet. It also shows that scenes deteriorate with other people that you may not expect to deteriorate. And when there's alcohol involved, people are generally not cooperative or honest. Domestic violence can always escalate. You always have to be careful. They recommend most places now have law enforcement come in before you get there. If you incite violence, you will get violence. Yeah, we don't got time for that. All right, any questions? All right, that moves us on to our next chapter.
Actually, I have a question. So
I'm ready.
in a situation in which we are, we scan the scene, it looks to be safe, obviously we continue to make sure that's the case. But the moment outpatient becomes violently involved, the local authorities.
Yep, you retreat to a safe area,
Okay.
notify law enforcement. You don't completely leave the scene and go back to quarters. You go to a safe area, notify law enforcement, wait for them to secure the scene. Then when the scene's secured, you can go back in.
Okay.
And that will be a test question. Medical, legal, and ethical issues. This is a huge part of EMS. The number one litigated thing is against medical advice. When you don't transport someone, they refuse. When something bad happens to them, they try to sue you. I just lost what I was gonna say. Anyway, hopefully it'll come back to me. This is not uncommon to have to get called in to testify on an incident that happened 6 years prior. That's why your documentation is critically important. Thought for the day. Preparedness makes a difference when you're having to take a split decision. Knowing your equipment's ready, you know how to use it without having to think about it, so you can immediately use it. It's critical to the success of a time-sensitive situation. Any questions? So we're going to go over the 4 types of consent and what they mean. We're going to go over the steps for when someone is refusing service. We're going to teach you what HIPAA is. We're going to go over what the difference between a do not resuscitate order is and an advance directive. We're going to go over what death looks like, what the difference is between physical death, presumptive death, and definitive death. Most people don't know there's stages of death. I say, oh, wow, they're more dead than they were before. They go, what are you talking about? There's different stages of death. We're going to go what a medical alert insignia is. We're going to go over what duty to act is. Duty to act will be on every test. And there will be questions based off of it. You have to know what it is. We're going to go over the differences between negligence, abandonment, assault, battery, and kidnapping. Because not all these things are what people think they are. And we're going to go over the situations that you will be a mandated reporter when you're an EMT, meaning that you will be required by law to report certain situations. Questions on the objectives yet? Yes.
What happens if you don't report it?
You can lose your license.
Oh,
They'll snag it from you. All right. And if something happens to that person that you didn't make the report, you could also be found civilly liable.
oh wow.
Yeah. All right, so consent. You are not allowed to touch or treat anyone until you've obtained one of the 4 types of consent. The 4 types of consent are expressed, implied, informed, and involuntary. The first 3 you can get. The 4th one you're not allowed to do. You have to call in law enforcement and a base hospital physician. We're going to go over each one of these now. Express consent. That is when someone tells you they want help. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm paramedic calling assistant. Can I help you? That's refusal of consent. That is express consent. So in order for them to give express consent, they have to be a legal adult. They have to be oriented person, place, time, and event. That's known as alert and oriented times 4. And they have to be intellectually capable of making a decision. They cannot be developmentally disabled. Express consent is when you ask them if you can help them and they verbally tell you so. That's expressed consent. Any questions on what expressed consent is?
Oh, if the moment they take their consent away, we have to be stopped, correct?
Yep, and they can revoke consent at any time. You can't shut the door and go, too bad, sucker. Now you gotta, they can revoke it, and that does occasionally happen. However, you have to drop them off in a safe place. You can't put them out on the side of Highway 97 in the dark and the rain. So, now unless they want to get out there, you can't stop them. Don't fight them for it. But most people are, don't want that to happen. Any questions on express consent? Yes.
So in terms of like what you're telling, I'm sure you'll tell us, but like when we're telling them what we're going to do, we can start off with the like, can I put you to,
Yeah, generally, we started right at the beginning when we introduce ourselves.
okay,
Hi, I'm an EMT with so-and-so. Can I help you? That's how we generally start every patient contact.
okay.
And 90% of the people say yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably 90, about 70% of the people say yes. About a third, a little less than a third say, no, I didn't call you, I don't want you here. And we'll go over what to do when that happens. The next one is implied consent. This is if someone is incapacitated or unconscious, it is assumed that they would want consent because they are not awake or are severely altered. Or they're a minor with no guardian present.
You know, we go against this, if some form of written, like an NDA type thing.
We're gonna go over that next. That's informed consent. Anyone who's got a parent, child in public school knows about informed consent. Behind you first. No, you.
Okay, is there different definitions of implied consent, like based on county or like state?
Implied consent is implied consent. They're unresponsive. It's assumed that they would want it. Yes. That's a great question. And we're gonna go over that. So if it's suicide and they're unresponsive, it's implied consent. If they're awake and refusing, then we're gonna get to that in 2 slides. So informed consent. Anyone who's got a child in public school knows about informed consent. This is a written consent. We take your child to the doctor if they get hurt playing basketball in a road game. It's a set of written instructions providing consent. Most schools have informed consent on file. Any questions on informed consent? All right, ready to move to the big one? Yes.
What if you have informed consent, but they're saying that you can't help them?
So if it's a child and you have informed consent from the parent's already given you authorization, the child can't refuse.
Okay,
So then you would involve law enforcement. You
Okay.
can't kidnap them. You have informed consent, pretty much covered from the parent.
okay.
Yes.
Is there a certain limit for what the written consent will last?
Yeah. So generally, most informed consents are it's just to cover all. You can treat my child for any reason if there's an emergency or a need, what they usually say. I haven't filled one out for years, so, but that's generally, it's pretty much a catch-all, but you can make informed consent of anything. And in a bit, we'll get over another type of informed consent, which is DNRs, living wills, truths, medical, what did you call it earlier? Medical proxies. Those are also types of informed consent that are much more specific things. We'll go over that a little bit. You guys ready for the big one? Yeah, involuntary consent. So, involuntary consent, you cannot place anyone or treat anyone under involuntary consent. It has to be done by law enforcement in conjunction with your base hospital. The question was, what about someone that's suicidal? That doesn't want your help. So if they're a danger to themselves, which all suicidal people are, or others, or they are gravely disabled, they'll fall under the Health and Safety Code 5150. Now, 5150 generally in common public is associated with crazy people. But it's really not about being crazy. It's about being a danger to yourself or others or gravely disabled. To the point that you can't make rational decisions. So you can contact law enforcement and they can put the patient, usually in conjunction with a base hospital physician. They can place Kirk.
Have a good night.
The patient on a 5150 hold. And that's holds them for 72 hours for evaluation. Now, in order for someone to qualify for 5150 for law enforcement placed under that, they cannot be under the influence of alcohol or drugs. As you saw in the previous video, alcohol can make you do all kinds of wild stuff that you wouldn't do if you were sober. So people that are under alcohol or drugs would actually fall under 5170, which is a danger to yourself or others or gravely disabled due to alcohol or substance abuse. However, I have never seen someone placed under a 5170 hold, because it's much easier for law enforcement to just arrest them under code 647F, which is intoxicated in public, which then puts them under law enforcement control and custody, and then they can give you the consent to treat. Any questions? Yes.
So EMS don't, if we're approached with a suicidal situation, come to the conclusion that this person is suicidal, do we just not interact?
So a lot of times, depending on how good you are, about 3/4 of suicidal patients, just with discussion, I can get to come with you off. I don't have to do this. Then there's a quarter that is just adamant that they're gonna kill themselves and they do not want help and they don't care what I have to say. And those, you have to involve.
But we wouldn't get in trouble for speaking to the patient
Yeah.
and trying to get them.
No, you can try to get express consent from them. That's always the best way to go. And generally, law enforcement will try to do the same thing. Because what law enforcement will do is they'll explain to them the process, because if they go under 5150, they're gone for 3 days. And it's like I say, hey, listen, just go with EMS, get checked out, talk to somebody, get everything in order, you might be able to be back home tonight. If law enforcement has to take you, it's gonna be a minimum of 3 days, you're gonna hold. And most people, would choose law enforcement, or not law enforcement, EMS. Once in a great while, they gotta go by law enforcement. It's a lot of paperwork. No one wants to do that. Any questions? Emancipated minors. Of every 100 minors you will come across that will tell you they are emancipated, 99 of them will not be. There's a gross misperception of what an emancipated minor is in the public of the United States. Because someone is not living with their parent does not make them emancipated. Because they have decided that they're emancipated does not make them emancipated. The 1% that actually is emancipated will always have their paperwork with them and know what the deal is. They have to have legal proof. They will have their paperwork and they'll show it to you and it will be in order. Otherwise, they won't be emancipated. It's not an easy thing to become. Goes. Any questions? Yes.
In the event that, so we can assume that they're not emancipated, but let's just say they are emancipated, minor. Just in this particular person, they don't have their documentation.
We consider them a minor.
And so
They can't
then
show up when they're a minor.
will they, is there any possible situation where they could possibly sue us then afterwards?
If they don't have the evidence, the proof of it, there is no way to do that. You have to assume that they are a minor. And emancipated minors know that because they've had that education to become emancipated. They know if they don't have their paperwork, it doesn't fly. In fact, in my decades of EMS, I have never come across an emancipated. That's how rare it is. They're very rare. Yes.
So when I was reading the book, it talks about emancipation and emancipate minors that are not having paperwork,
Uh-huh.
like they live on their own, they have a family, and it says.
Like they're married?
Yeah, like it says to treat them as an emancipated.
If there's a spouse there, there's children, and it's obvious that they're emancipated, that's different. But again, those situations are very, very rare. And most of them will still have, did you always have your paperwork? Yeah, most of them know the value of that paperwork, but they always have it with them. Any questions? All right. Refusal of treatment. The number one litigated thing in EMS. So you will have local protocols, but all of the local protocols follow pretty much the same standard guidelines for refusal of treatment. So to protect yourself, these guidelines are put in place to protect you, not to protect the patient. So the general basics are they have to be a competent adult. They have to understand. There has to be a significant mechanism injury or chief complaint or illness. They have to understand the consequences of not being seen at a hospital. And they have to understand the benefits of being seen at the hospital. If they can clearly state those things to you, then they can refuse. Most EMS systems will give you a checklist to go down to make sure that you do it right. Here's an example of the checklist. If they will allow you, do a full physical assessment with vital signs. If they will allow you or cooperate with you, get a history of their event, their past medical history, their signs and symptoms, allergies, medications, past medical history, last oral intake, and the events leading up to the situation. If it's a parent or guardian, it's determined to be legally capable for a minor, make sure that they have the ability to get treatment or transportation when you leave. Do they have a car? Is there gas in the car? You have to be competently aware of the risks of having the treatment not done or assessment not done. You have to reasonably understand the benefits of being taken to the hospital and treated. You have to clearly offer them assistance and treatment. You'll have a form that they will fill out and sign it. Now, if they refuse to sign it, then you have two witnesses sign it that are there, usually law enforcement or someone from another agency. Should have multiple agencies on scene. You should also advise them if they're not going to be treated by you to go to someone else, their private physician or the ER, and get their medical complaint addressed. You also have to advise them that if their complaint gets worse or they change their mind, they can call 911 and you will come back and there is no issue with that. And if it's a potentially life-threatening complaint, you need to make base hospital contact before you release the patient. Now, sometimes people will tell you to screw off and walk away. There's nothing you can do about that. But under normal circumstances, that's the checklist that you should go. And again, wherever you work, the agency should have an against medical advice checklist to protect you and to protect them. Any questions? All right. Yeah.
With the base, you have contact the hospital.
Mhm.
If the patient says no, I've been freezing the treatment, you let the hospital know, they can't say, no, he needs to come in, like.
They can.
They can, so at that.
But
point-
then at that point, then you have to involve law enforcement.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, yeah, so if the base hospitals determine the patient is a danger to themselves, then you need to contact law enforcement. And there's your list of people that you should contact law enforcement for involuntary consent. Anyone who's altered, yes.
Sorry, so, like in a situation where you are evacuating a patient from, I guess, in like EMR capacity, they evacuate the patient uses like ambulance service specifically. Isn't there a point where you're just not allowed to touch them anymore and they have to like,
You say
Get themselves-
evacuation, what do you mean, like,
in a certain
From a fire?
capacity? And you're like journeying them, but then they like don't want to pay for an ambulance service,
Uh-huh.
right? So like, what would you do in that?
so you're saying that you're already transporting someone, then they decide they don't want to go?
Yeah, and you already did the stabilizing like treatments.
Then you go down the,
Yeah.
the AMA checklist, make sure they're aware of the risks
Right,
and the benefits, make sure they're confident, and yeah, they can change their mind at any point, then you'll let them off the gurney after they sign and walk away.
even if they can't physically like get into their own.
Well, that's different,
Right,
because then you can't leave, because then that's a liability, but if they can't physically do it, how are they gonna walk away?
right,
They're kind of stuck.
yeah,
But then at that point, they're a danger to themselves or others, and you involve law enforcement.
okay.
So. And generally, like, I've had that probably happen to me probably 5 times in my career. I've had to stop the ambulance and let someone out. And we always notify law enforcement. It's like, hey, just so you're aware, this person such and such and such, and they're getting out of the ambulance. Because you don't fight them. If somebody wants to go, don't get in their way, let them go. And usually cops will be right there, at least around here, because it's a pretty small area. So
Right,
cops are usually right there.
but I mean,
And they'll open the back door, then they'll turn and they go, this is a trick.
are you, Bill, allowed to like assist them out, or do they have to then assist? them take
Absolutely.
themselves out, like, so that
Yeah,
they
you can assist them out. If they're absolutely adamantly refusing and you followed your protocol and your checklist, yeah, you can help them out, make sure they get out safely.
Okay.
I said, just make sure they're in a safe area, then you can have liability if they're not a safe area. You can't drop them off on the side of the highway.
Yeah.
So you might want to, you can't. So any other questions on when to involve law enforcement? All right. Yep. The Health Information Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. So HIPAA started in 1992 when a fresh young president out of Arkansas got to the White House. And they're going to create a universal health care system so everybody was on the same insurance. And that's what the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act was. And by the time they got through politicking and negotiating and all that stuff, nobody got insurance. But they took existing privacy laws and put teeth to them. So what they did was they started a huge funding source for the government by applying fines to privacy law violations. So what happens is if you talk about or release any medical information about any person, you're fined $15,000 and your agency's fined like $50,000 by the federal government. So you have to get it in writing from the patient to release any information about them, including to their health insurance provider for their health insurance to pay their medical bills. You don't have it in writing from the patient, you can be fined lots of money. You personally and the agency you work for. This put most private doctors' offices out of business to comply, just because the amount of paperwork and red tape to make all this work and comply. It caused the cost of healthcare operations to skyrocket, or almost tripled in less than a year. What's that?
Kind of reverse effect of what they're going for.
Absolutely, same with before then 20 years later, they did it again with the Affordability Care Act. They did the same thing. They tripled the cost of healthcare again and got some people insurance that most facilities and agencies won't take because it doesn't pay enough to even pay the electric bill. And yeah, anyway, is what it is. So you cannot release any information about anyone without their express written consent. And if you do, and you get caught, you will be fined. That's a debatable one. If they're dead, I still don't believe because they have a thing called an estate, and probate estate. And the probate estate is protected by HIPAA. So no. They're not allowed to. Whoever gets, what do they call it? Executor of the estate can then sign it. Then you can release it. Now, if there's a commission investigation of a crime, you can release it to law enforcement if they are actively investigating a crime.
After, I forgot what it was called, after an event, when you're with your team, talking about.
Oh, CISD?
Yes.
CISD, you're talking about what happened. You're not specifically talking about the patient's medical condition and care. You're talking about the incident, the event, and everyone that was there was involved in that care, so there's no violation. Does that make sense? Just like if it's going through the billing process. I'm the quality control director for the agency I work for, so I see every patient care report. But that's not a HIPAA violation because I'm the quality control director, part of that healthcare team. But I can't give that information to anyone else. I can't go down to the bar and say, hey, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? Okay, advanced directives. These are pre-written instructions by the patient on what they want you to do as a healthcare provider if they are incapacitated and they cannot tell you. If the patient is alert and awake, they can revoke that consent. It is only if they are incapacitated. If they're awake and alert and they say they want treatment, and you go, oh, you signed an advanced directive that you don't want to be treated. Sorry, pal. Too bad. That doesn't work that way. It's only if they're incapacitated. If they say they want help, you provide help. Same thing with a durable power of attorney. A durable power of attorney is when they have signed in writing that if they are incapacitated, a person has the authority to make their healthcare decisions. If they are not incapacitated, then the durable power of attorney does not apply. Any questions? And where you'll run into that is you'll have an elderly person as a child who has durable power of attorney. The elderly person is refusing treatment. They understand the risks. The child will show up and say, I have durable power of attorney. Take them to the hospital. Well, you can only take them to the hospital if they're not oriented to person, place, time, and event, and they're not able to make their own decisions. If they're fully confident mentally, the durable power of attorney doesn't kick in. Any questions? Yeah. All right, let's talk about dead people. So, types of death. Physical signs of death. No breathing, no pulse. Any questions on physical signs of death? Then you have presumptive death, which is when you think they might be dead. No heartbeat, no breath sounds, pupils don't react. Cyanosis, which means their skin's turning a light blue tint and they're cold to the touch. Now, if it's physical signs of death or presumptive signs of death, if there's not a do not resuscitate order, you should start CPR. Now, if they have definitive signs of death, you should not do CPR. If their heart, lung, or brain is missing from the body, there's no benefit to doing CPR. Depending on your protocols, most places, dependent lividity. What dependent lividity is when the heart has been beating for about 20 minutes, all the blood will gravitationally go to the lowest parts of the body. It'll turn kind of a blackish purple. And then it'll be what's called a demarcation line, and everything above that will be pale because all the blood's run down to the bottom by gravity. And then rigor mortis, that's when they're stiff. Like when you see in the cartoons when they're running, they step on the dead body's toe and it stands up. That's rigor mortis. Any questions? Oh, wow, that's a great question. I don't know. They turn stiff? That's a great question. I've never looked into that. Never thought about why that happens. I just know when you go to move their jaw, usually it starts in the jaw. If someone tells you the jaw sees shut, it's like, ah, that's regular. We shouldn't be doing CPR. That's what dependent lividity is. They stuck their hand in there and rolled her over onto her side. But that's what it'll look like. She was lying flat on her back. And all the blood cooled down to the lowest gravitational place.
Ooh.
That's a definitively dead person. Any questions? Maybe depends on who you are. Yeah, generally. I mean, after you see it a couple hundred times, yeah. So they have definitive death. They'll do an autopsy, they'll cut them up, try to figure out what killed them. Unless there's a physician that's willing to sign a death certificate, goes, I know what killed that guy. And if they're an organ donor, this will be a test question. They're not treated any differently.
You just put them up to oxygen just because the heart wants to be.
Oxygen won't work if there's no heartbeat. Oxygen's got to go through the lungs, the blood's got to circulate, so it doesn't do any good.
Did you keep the organs alive?
You know? The only way organ donors work, keep the organs alive is to have a pulse. But there's some things like skin and corneas, stuff like that, they can take from people even after they're dead. There's lots of parts, of heart, bone, ligaments, arteries. A lot of times they'll take aortas and stuff for grafts. They use cadaver aortas. Then they'll keep it on ice. Then someone ruptures the aorta, emergency surgery, they can throw a dead person's aorta in there. They don't have to be alive for that to happen.
Successful like organ donors usually they like die in the hospital.
So depends on what you mean. So like if you're talking like major organs like lungs, heart transplants, kidney transplants, liver transplants, yeah, those people have to be alive. They're generally they're brain dead. And they just keep them alive until a harvest team gets there. And they'll come in with some ice chests. And while they're alive, they'll cut they'll let them die. And then they'll immediately cut the organs out, throw them on ice, and get them to the recipient immediately. They usually land with a Learjet. Learjet, like CSI, it's a real fancy jet, comes flying in. And they fly it, and they get the organ parts, they jump in Learjet and fly to wherever the person that needs it, and then they throw it in real quick. You only got like 10 hours on ice. But things like bone and ligaments, like I said, arteries, stuff like that, they can be dead. Skin, hernias, that doesn't have to have a pulse. Any questions? A lot of sports players that have real bad fractures. Freddie Stennett, I'm trying to think. Guy that played for the Buffalo Bills, and he played for the Niners upper. Judge Cribs was running back, broke his tib so badly they had to put a cadaver bone in. So as they did, they took a dead person's tibia and put it in them and screwed it all together. He was actually able to play again. Any questions?
What they call them.
Huh?
Do they call them by name afterwards?
Probably. You know how locker rooms are. All right, standard of care. So we talked about federal law, the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration, Department of Transportation sets very basic guidelines. And then the states build their EMS systems off those guidelines. And then generally the counties within the states then start up local scopes of practices and protocols. Any questions? And that's comprises together and makes what's called standard of care. Duty dash. You have to know this one. You cannot pass this class if you don't know duty dash. If you are on duty as an EMT, you get dispatched, you have a duty to act. If you are off duty, you do not have a duty to act. You don't have to stop and offer anyone help just because you're an EMT. Yes,
So if. What if somebody, like, say you're installing, something happens and someone, you're off duty, but someone knows that that's your job. And they ask you, hey, can you help this person?
you could say no.
Really?
You're gonna look really bad, but
Right.
but you have the legal authority to say no. However, once you start treating, if you're off duty, you have a duty to act until you hand it over to someone of equal or higher level of care. Same with your on duty. Most people, if something like that happens, they're gonna stop. If they're an EMT or a paramedic, they're gonna stop it. Now, if it's a car accident, I personally do not stop at car accidents. There's nothing I can do for those people. And there's an excellent chance I'm gonna get hit or my family's gonna get hit by stopping on the side of the freeway. It's as dangerous of a place as there is. But yeah, if someone drops in a store, usually it's in casinos. If you're in a casino, people drop in casinos daily. Actually, in fact, you know where the #1 survivability rate of cardiac arrest is? It's casinos. Because everyone's on camera and everyone's being watched. Now, every security has AEDs with them. They're usually shocked in less than 2 minutes when they go into a cardiac arrest.
Get back to gambling.
Absolutely. Get them back to that slot machine.
Cigarette and a drink.
Any questions about duty to act? Okay. Negligence. You have to work real hard to get found guilty of gross negligence. The only way you can be found guilty of negligence, they have to prove 4 things in order. First thing they have to prove is that you have a duty to act. Second thing they have to prove is that you breached that duty. Third, there had to be damages, something bad had to happen. And then fourth, causation had to prove that those damages were caused by your breach of duty. If you do your job the way you're supposed to do it, it's almost physically impossible for this to happen. But if you show up at shift at 8 o'clock and you sit down and have coffee and donuts with your coworkers and don't bother to check your rig and there's no oxygen because someone left the oxygen on, then you go out on a cardiac arrest and you have no oxygen and that patient dies and there's no oxygen, is that a breach of duty? Absolutely. Was there damages? Absolutely. Could those damages be tied to your breach of duty? Absolutely. That's how it happens. Or if you don't know your protocols or you didn't pay attention in your EMT class and you do something that hurts the patient, is that a breach of duty? Yep. You don't know how to work your equipment and it injures the patient. It can happen. Or if you don't even assess or treat your patient because you're gonna have a bad attitude, you're angry that you're on the job, and you throw your patient flat face first down on the gurney and smother them and never check vital signs all the way to the hospital. Would that be a breach of duty? Would there be damages if the patient's dead? Could there be causation that your breach of duty caused that patient to die? You think that would ever happen? Happens all the time. Don't be that person. Want to see a video of it?
Yeah.
Watch. Because they're doing this for the wrong reason. Because they get paid really well, but they don't want to do what they're being paid to do. Because they're above. Here you go. Look how happy that paramedic is to be there doing her job.
She's been slowly stripping off those clothes.
Yeah. She's the paramedic.
Yes. Wow.
You can tell by her facial expression, she has a good attitude. She's happy to be there.
Earl. What's your birthday, man? Hey. What's your birthday?
That's about all we've been able to get.
Earl, sit up. Sit up.
We're gonna teach you to not do this.
Come on, Earl, let's man.
Notice the BSI she has on?
Sit up. Sit up now. I am not playing tonight. Sit up. What is your birthday?
March 27th.
What year?
Earl, do you want to go to the hospital, ma'am? We need to get up.
You're gonna have to walk. We ain't carrying you.
So let's get up on your feet.
Cause I am seriously not in the mood for this dumb shit.
You can walk, come on. Let's stand up. I'm gonna let you, Earl. I know you can do it. I've seen you do it.
I'm sure. No.
Stand up. Use your legs.
Come on, Earl. Get you some help, bud.
Just pick your coat. Yeah, I'm not gonna put it on. I got your coat. Wet bullets.
Nope.
No, sweating bullets.
Only way we're gonna get you is if we walk to the house.
Come on, Earl.
You're not dead weight.
Maybe we are. All right.
No, stand away. Get up. Or you can stay here.
Well, law enforcement.
If you wanna go to the
secure the
hospital,
scene.
man, you gotta help us out a little bit.
No, there's an EMT there. He walked out, put his gloves on.
Earl, are you gonna go or are you gonna stay? What?
If you're gonna go, you need to get up and walk.
What's up? What's up, bud? You wanna go? All right.
Then get up.
Come on.
I'm calling, stop, somebody to help me get up.
You gotta use your legs, man. You can't just go dead weight on us.
You gotta get up. You call him, obviously you need the help, get up and go to the hospital.
We'll give you the help, bud.
You need the help. Where hospital you wanna go to, same time.
Come on, let's go. Help me up. Let's go. Come on. Help yourself. All right. 1, 2. There you go. There you go. There you go. Come on, buddy. Keep it moving. All right, we're moving. We're moving. Let's keep going. One foot in front of the other. Come on, buddy. That's it. We'll hold you up, but you gotta walk forward.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy. We got you.
Yeah.
Now, let's do our next. What's the
Come on, Earl, man, you gotta help us out a little bit. We ain't never gonna get out of this house.
Guys, gotta get up and go. Need the help. You call
Watch how they put him on the gurney.
Are you freaking kidding me, man? I know you can walk. All you gotta do is get outside, the cot's outside. Come on.
You can walk, get up.
We're gonna leave you here, buddy. We don't wanna do that, but we can't carry you all the way.
Girl, get up. You call them, you need to go. Go to the hospital. The ambulance is outside waiting for you. Get up.
All you gotta do is walk out that front door. Yeah, it's right outside, wait for it.
Girl, get up.
We're right outside the door.
Girl, get up.
Yeah, all you have to do is walk out
Get
there.
up. Come on, you called, you wanted the help. Come on, get up.
All right, we got another 10 feet. 10 feet, my man. Come on. Go on this side. You got 10 feet, we're gonna go right to the door, then you can lay down. And you can fall face first on that cot. We're doing once a week, though. We're not taking more breaks. Gotcha. Ready? Come on. We're doing it. Right here. Right there.
Where's the EMT?
Go on, buddy. Go on. All you gotta do is go right there. I know it's cold. I know it's cold. Yep, keep going, keep going. Look negative. Come on, buddy. Now get up on there, man.
Watch the EMT does.
Get on there, what?
They can't get you there if you don't get on the cot.
Hear him gasping for air, sweating bullets,
Stand up. Stand up.
basic patient assessment.
All right, Earl, this is getting a little silly, man.
What's this?
There we go.
They're gonna strap him in front, face down, and wrap him up. Oh. I never even took vital signs. Showed up with a dead body. Massive heart attack.
All right, we'll get him to the hospital. They'll get him to the hospital.
So did they have a duty to act? Are they having a breach of duty right now?
Yeah.
So he dies, they're not in the hospital, they don't even know it because they don't monitor him or even monitor his airway or take vital signs. Is that damages because he's dead?
Yeah.
Can you easily tie the causation of his death to the breach of duty? Yeah, both that EMT and that paramedic right now are sitting in prison for murder.
Oh, I'm gonna wait till he gets there.
They both got convicted of murder.
I'll find a way to dead weight off of that thing.
Okay. Cops there to secure the scene. They called for medical to help him. Yeah, they did what they were supposed to do. They called for EMS. I don't know anything about their EMS system. It could be like Reading where the fire department refuses to come unless it's a code E, which is CPR progress. Not all fire departments will respond. Any questions on how to commit gross negligence?
So in this situation, can the law enforcement, if they see that breach of duty, can they actively arrest the paramedic and the EMT?
It's hard because they're referring to them as professionals. But yeah, once the guy was dead, they turned over all their body cams or evidence. And if they see someone actively hurting them, I don't think the cops understood. Like they said, he's sweating bullets. That's one of the first keys is having a massive heart attack. So this is another one where law enforcement got in trouble with this one. There's combat with law enforcement, but then sending EMS does nothing and doesn't even monitor the basics of airway breathing and circulation. Once the guy sit there and die. There he is. EMS gets here, puts the monitor down, then they go over and talk to the cops for a while. So leave all their equipment next to the patient, they go over and talk to people, wait around. Don't provide any treatment.
Standing trying to give out, hit the siren, stop. I'm like, drove around, swerved like you could hit my car. So then I'm like, God damn, man, what are you doing? He pulled up to the red light, stopped at the red light, was trying to see the phone. So we jump out the car. She went from there. He got out the
Oh, everybody on this one got in big trouble. There's a police pursuit and then a fight.
What you was there, bro?
Then he died as a result of,
What you was there?
I can't remember what he died from, but it was linked to the fight from resisting arrest. But EMS does literally nothing. And we're 10 minutes into this now. The guy's still lying there. They've done nothing. Just walk away. So do they have a duty to act? Yeah. Are they having a breach of duty right now? Yeah. This guy dies before he gets to the hospital. Is that damages?
Yeah, I'm trying to find him.
Can those damages be tied to the breach of duty? This guy's doing absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Hey, Mills.
Can the police deny or like demand care of this guy now because of their custody or?
They can't, they can, yeah, they can say, they can take him to the hospital themselves. They don't feel EMS is doing anything, which EMS is not.
I mean, like, could they say that he doesn't need EMS?
No, they can't dictate, if it goes to the highest certified medical, which they're not gonna be.
Gotcha.
They can't dictate medical care to the paramedic.
So they're not like such a guardian situation. right?
They are, but again, they can't dictate medical care to someone that's got a higher medical care certification from the nation. And that's why they call medical to be there. Medical's wandering around talking to cops, and I don't have an explanation for this, but it's gross negligence. And the latest one, which I don't have on video yet, but I'll have for next semester, is the Colorado incident that just happened where the drug called ketamine uses to sedate people. The general dose is 0.3 milligrams per kilogram away to a maximum of 30 milligrams. They injected it with 500. And then didn't monitor his airway or his breathing. And did the same thing that you saw in the first video and brought a dead body into the hospital. So they're the latest ones to go to jail. Don't do that. Do not do that. Treat your patients with the utmost respect, patient care. All right, abandonment. Yes.
Why did they inject him with ketamine?
Because they needed to sedate him because there was a report that earlier he'd been combative. He was not combative at the time. He was already handcuffed. Yeah, the video is amazing. They're in there. They got their turnouts. They got their thumbs inside the fence. The turnouts are too cool for school. Then they drop a whole vial of ketamine and just inject it right into his arm. Kill him. Know your protocols. Know your drugs. Know when and why you should do things. Yeah, that's all on video too.
Where was this at?
Colorado. It was just a couple months ago.
Wow.
I'll have that in for next semester. I didn't have time to get it over there. You know what? Hold on. Watch this. Colorado ketamine, I'll bet you it comes up. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to prison, as they should. We don't want the news, though. We want the actual raw footage. Ketamine doesn't kill patients, paramedics do. That's awesome. Because that's true. I mean, they flat killed it. I mean. Yeah, any brand new attorney just straight out of law school could have won this case. And his Elijah McCain's family should have one hell of a civil suit against Colorado, city of Denver. Oh, well, I can't find the raw footage. I'm not gonna bore you with it. Well, that's what, but the media does that. You always put a picture of a little kid because as adults, you don't look as cute. Media always does that. He doesn't do it, but we all looked better when we were kids. All right, abandonment. Abandonment is a form of negligence, but it's different than your standard gross negligence. Abandonment is when you have a duty to act, and you make patient contact, and then you terminate that patient contact before you turn them over to someone of equal or higher level of care without their consent. Like they refuse, that's different. You do the AMA. But if you walk away or stop treating that patient without turning them over to someone with equal or higher level of care, that is abandonment. Now, generally, the way abandonment happens in EMTs is they'll bring a patient into a very busy ER and they'll get another dispatch and they'll throw them into an ER bed and take off without giving a report to a nurse. That's the most common. And then no one knows the guy's in there and nurses go to put another patient and they find the body. Yeah, it has to be a face-to-face contact. You have to turn over the care to someone else. That's equal or higher level of care than you. You can't turn it down over to someone that's lower level of care. Yes.
Which one?
Arm wrestle for it.
One more.
So say if it's like a mass casualty thing.
Mass casualty does not account.
Doesn't count.
Nope, that changes all the rules. If you've activated a mass casualty incident, then abandonment doesn't count. You.
So, same thing, well, the same thing would apply. Like you have to give a verbal communication with that nurse when you make it to the emergency department.
Mhm.
So, say you call for a traffic collision with someone victim, you can't leave until you do that.
Correct.
Communication.
Absolutely correct. Mass casualty is called triage. We'll go over that the last night of class, what to do. You go through your triage, that's when you've got like 50 patients. There's no way you can treat all of them. So you want to try to save as many people as possible. So you triage all of them, so you're not actually abandoning.
Or that's just a multiple.
If it overwhelms your resources, it's considered an MCI. If it's more patients than you can handle. Generally, in the general rule of thumb is 5 critical patients or 10 or more patients. Anything less than that's probably not an MCI. Unless you're the only ambulance for like 100 miles, then this might be. Any questions about abandonment? We get lots of test questions on that. All right, assault, battery, kidnapping. Assault, people think that assault is harming someone. Assault is not. You don't even have to touch someone to be convicted of assault. Assault is putting someone in fear of harm. That was assault. Right? Don't turn me in. Battery is when you touch someone against their will. Kidnapping is when you hold someone against their will. Detain them. Any questions on the difference between assault, battery, and kidnapping? Yes. That's detaining someone against their will. It's that's imprisonment. If you lock someone into a room and they can't get out of, that's imprisonment. That's also illegal. Yes.
Does the definition of assault change when it comes to sexual assault?
No, it's also if they actually touch them, it's sexual battery.
Okay.
That's why you'll hear that charge, sexual battery. Any questions? Yeah, sexual assault, you can not touch someone and actually be charged with sexual assault. You put them in true fear of harm, legitimate fear of harm, they can prove that you did that. It's assault. But you'd have to catcall them and like corner them where they can't get away, or they could truly feel that they're in fear or danger of it actually happening. They're driving away from you when they do it. Don't do it. Yes,
Going back really quick to the abandonment piece, if you encounter somebody who doesn't ultimately need a hospital, like transportation to the hospital, but you maybe help with someone. Or I don't know your life, but you help with some care that then is resolved,
they would have to refuse.
so then they then refuse further care.
Yep, they have
Okay,
to refuse. You have to either take them to the hospital or they have to sign a refusal.
gotcha,
Because you're not, EMT scope does not allow you to medically clear any,
but the paramedic.
paramedics
like-
can't medically clear
Oh,
either.
they can't either, so we
Nope.
got medical.
Medical control,
Control, yeah,
and there's probably not a physician in the world that's gonna medically clear someone they haven't seen themselves.
gotcha. So the likelihood of not transporting. Well,
Very low.
Okay.
Any questions? And there's actually, there's a large misconception out there that EMTs and paramedics can medically clear people. And sometimes law enforcement will call you to medically clear. It's not your scope of practice to do that. You have to offer them care, and if they refuse it,
Wow.
that's cool, then they can do it. Or if they're in custody, law enforcement can refuse it. But then they're signing for it, and they're taking on the liability. All right, mandated reporters. As an EMT, you will be a mandated reporter. If you run across any of the following things, you will be required to report it to the investigative authority law enforcement for the area where you saw it occur. This includes child abuse, elder abuse, childbirth. We want to count these kids because they're future taxpayers. Yeah. Because there's a big internment business. Possible sexual assault, any possible sexual assault must be reported. Anyone that's had an injury during the commission of any type of a felony. Any injuries related to illegal drugs. Any injuries related to any type of crime scene. I don't know why they separated dogs from other animals, but dog bites and other animal bites. If they've got a just what, you have to report it. It stands for gunshot wound. That was a joke, just what? Huh? Stabbing or any other type of assault, which is actually his battery. Yes.
During one of the focus videos, he was asking about where to report stuff to, and I thought that it was an overdose would have to be reported, but instead it was a suicide, and I was a little confused.
Either one would have to be reported. But what's the best answer? I'd have to see the whole question, the way it's worded. Because they could both be right answers, but which one's the most right answer? So it just depends on how it's worded.
So if someone just has a dog bite on them,
You have to report it. Dogs are not allowed to bite people. And people are not allowed to bite dogs. Yes.
Is this off duty and on duty?
Only duty act. If you're off duty, you don't have a duty act, you can go. I did not see that.
But don't do that.
So like.
I wouldn't do that, but I mean, there's an whole ethical thing there. But you don't have a legal duty to act or report if you're not on duty. Yes.
And if you're calling to the scene where like a fight has been happening and people are beating each other up and they're not admitting to having fought each other, so they don't get in trouble, the law enforcement thinks that they
Still
did.
gotta call law enforcement.
That's still, well, I mean, like, you're responding to law enforcement, is that still like?
The law enforcement's there, you don't have to report it,
You
they're
don't
already there.
report it. Okay, so that's just on this.
Yep. This is when law enforcement's not there.
Gotcha. Okay.
You're required to report it. The most common things you have to report are child abuse and elder abuse. Pretty much all the rest of these dispatch is gonna have law enforcement there headed. Any questions? All right, we don't have time for that. All right, on to the next chapter. Night's flying by. Communication and documentation, critically important. All right, thoughts for the slideshow. Life's never easy. It's rarely gonna go the way you want it to or turn out the way you think it should. It's very, very, very easy to get lost and frustrated with chronic disappointment. So what do? The key to success and happiness is to use the lessons from disappointing outcomes to build a better plan to make sure your next results or actions are more aligned with what you expect to happen. Positive attitudes, positive actions will make your life easier in the long run. Not a short-term solution, but eventually the cost and price of doing things correctly and building towards what you want will pay huge dividends down the road. Any questions? All right, communication disasters.
If we're gonna get out of here, we're gonna need to get into that lunch now. And to do that, I'm gonna need a few things. The guards wear security bands to control their ins and outs. I need one.
Leave it to me.
That dude there. I need his prosthetic leg. His leg? Yeah. I don't need the rest of them. All right. And finally, on the wall back there is a black panel, blinky yellow light. You see it? Yeah. There's a Quanix battery behind it, purplish box, green wires. To get into that watchtower, I definitely need it.
How are we supposed to do that?
Well, supposedly these both bodies find you attractive, so maybe you can work out some sort of trade.
You must be joking.
No, I really heard they find you attractive.
Look, it's 20 feet up in the air and it's in the middle of the most heavily guarded part of the prison. It's impossible to get up there without being seen.
I got one plan. That plan requires a freaking Quanix battery, so
Figure it out!
go. Like it back to it? Thanks. Now, this is important. Once the battery is removed, everything is gonna slam into emergency mode. Once we have it, we gotta move quickly. So you definitely need to get that last. Or we can just get it first and improvise.
I'll get the arm man.
Leg.
Communication is everything. There is, but generally clear communication is not over communication. So you need to know the importance of good communication, the techniques on how to do good communication. Understand the barriers to communication. Know what's required in the patient care report and understand the legal implications of the patient care report. Know the different types of communication equipment and devices. Know how to properly talk on the radio and understand why patient care report documentation is critically important. Any questions on the objectives? If you cannot communicate with your patient, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to do a good assessment. There's lots of factors going to affect that. Age, generational language, culture, dialects are all potential barriers to being effective communication. However, your facial expression and body language can make or break your assessment. The video we just watched, the lady that murdered the guy, was her facial expressions and body language what you would want to see if your life was in danger? God, no. Oh, isn't that terrifying? If you call 911, that could be a response. It's terrifying. So always try to get at level with the patient. Make good eye contact. Introduce yourself, your level of training, and who you work for. Give your patient time to answer questions. Any questions? I didn't give you time to answer. All right, other things that can happen. Hearing impaired. Got the right notes or community tablets. Visually impaired. One of the biggest mistakes EMS makes when someone is blind is they think they're deaf too. So you start talking louder to them. They're blind, not deaf. Yeah, EMS does that every time. And of course, they don't speak the same language you do. However, if you have internet, Google Translate is amazing. If you know what language they're speaking. If you don't know what language they're speaking, you're in big trouble.
Speak louder.
Louder and slower, yeah. And any other language outside of English can understand English if you speak it loud enough and slow enough. No. But yeah, people that speak English think that, but. Do you speak English? Yes.
What's the most common?
Spanish. Yes. This is California. Spanish, hands down Spanish. After that, Hmong. Hmong. It's an Eastern Asian language. There's a huge Hmong population. It's just Uganda. Which Hmong is partially China. Actually, I think it's closer to Laos than China. I don't speak Hmong, so not even close. However, the sheriff's department does, I believe, have at least one deputy now. That is Hmong.
No longer.
No
But
longer?
They have a quick translation.
They do have a translator? Very helpful. Because as if you work in Siskiyou County, you have an excellent chance of coming across Hmong or Spanish speaking. I have no idea. Good question. I don't know. All right. Communicating with other healthcare professionals. You're going to be one of multiple agencies on scene of a 911 emergency. You all have to work together and be able to communicate together and transfer information back and forth. It's not as easy as you think. Just remember, no one knows what you saw, what you found, what you smelt, what you touched, and what you did, unless you put it in a clear, detailed report that goes with the patient. Any questions? Another example, communication disasters. Guys, pay attention.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Let's play The Stranger.
Okay.
When someone gets home tonight, someone should be wearing a naughty French-maid outfit, a blonde wig, and holding a six-pack of Bud Light.
Me like you, the stranger. Oh, you. Great taste of you fill you up and never let you down. Whoa, stranger.
Communication is critical. All right, your patient care report is a written document that is critical to your patient's success in definitive care. Remember what definitive care is. Getting the patient back to what they were prior to the incident that happened. You have to be able to paint a clear picture of what you saw and what you did. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you allowed to type a patient care report?
You're now required to type all your bids. They're all electronic now, at least in California. It's all digital now. It's all done usually, and on pretty much, I believe they're all cloud-based now.
Yeah, I can read my own. I'll know better.
Look at that. That's why I do everything on cell phone, typing on cell phone and computer. All right, why are PCRs important? This will be on the test. Continuity of care. No one knows what you saw, did, smelt, touched, and the reasons why, unless it's written down and it goes with the patient. It's also legal documentation explaining why you did what you did. It's also used for education and administrative purposes and research and the constant quality evaluation of the EMS system, what's working and what's not working. Any questions why the patient care report is so critically important? Is it hot in here?
Yes.
It's a wet box.
The paramedics, they turn it up every time.
My God. All right, you gotta have a clear written narrative. You're gonna have a lot of check boxes. But in addition to the check boxes, you need to have a clear narrative. Back about 20 years ago, someone was teaching in this county that less is more. There is no more untrue statement of less is more. That will get you literally fried in court. You have to have a clear picture of what happened written in your narrative. An unclear report lets the attorneys decide the narrative. You write a clear report that's factual and gives a good description of what happened and why. that eliminates them from creating their own narrative. If you don't do that, then whoever's reading it or whoever gets a hold of it can create your narrative for you. Yes.
And the PCRs are just for the patient's health, right?
Yep.
It's not like the scene.
Yes, C2.
It's C2.
If you're a first responder agency, you still gotta write a patient care report. Any questions? Yes.
And PCR can go to the coroner if the person dies.
Yep, they usually do.
Yeah.
First thing the deputy's gonna ask you, what's your patient care report? Because they're gonna request it.
Copy paste it.
What's your run number? Any questions?
You write them right after you're away from the patient or during.
So by Title 22 state law, you're supposed to write it at the hospital. When you turn patient, as soon as you turn patient care over to someone, you're supposed to have the patient care report done and on their chart within an hour. They'll give you up to 24 hours because they understand you might get back-to-back calls and not be able to do that. Yeah. After 24 hours, you're in violation of Title 22.
Do you ever write notes while things are happening?
Depends on who you are. Some people, I've seen people that put a 3-inch cloth tape on their thigh and they write notes as they go. I've seen people that write it on clipboards. Me personally, I have a tablet and I just put the stuff in the tablet as I go. It sits right next to me on the bench of the ambulance. I just type it in as I go. Then I've got also everything, all my vital signs and my cardiac monitors, all that uploads to a cloud and downloads straight into my patient care report, which is real nice. Not everybody has that.
Damn it. So we should still always like note those things down.
Absolutely. And technology always has the potential to fail, so you should always have a backup system. Any questions? All right, here's another thing on clarity of documentation. If you don't write things down clearly, what can happen to the person reading it? This happened in Bedford.
We're moving, but
This is
moving.
KTVL,
On the
Bedford.
Capitol Beltway around Washington DC early this morning. A tractor trailer transporting Black and Gus, there's Black or Gus, was stopped on the side of the Beltway while the driver changed a flat tire. No, I wonder if those cows named Black and Gus were actually Black Angus cows. But I was in the
Make sure your report is clear. So state of California, on your narrative from your patient care report, will accept one of 3 formats, whichever one you choose. There is SOAP, chart, chronological. I'm gonna go over what each one of these means and how to do it. So SOAP is subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. The subjective is the information provided you from dispatch and the people at scene and the patient. Objective is what you see, hear, feel, smell, and find on your patient assessment. Assessment is you documenting the positive findings of your assessment and your primary impression. And then the plan is what your treatment is of the patient. So that is an acceptable format by California law. If you don't like SOAP, you can use chart or chronological. And I'll teach you what each of those are too. Yes.
Will we practice writing all these?
Oh yeah, you got to write 10 reports when you do your observation time, so you get good practice. If you're on a fire department or you go on calls, write as many of these as you want. I suggest you write as many as you possibly can to get good at it. All right, let's go over chart. The chart, chief complaint, history, assessment, treatment, and transport. RX is a prescription, which they're kind of cheating calling it treatment, but hey, it works. So chief complaint is what the patient feels is the biggest problem and the reason why you're there. History is the history of the patient's medical history and the current problem of what happened leading up to that. Assessment is the positive findings from your physical exam. Treatment is what you did based off your primary impression, what treatments you did and what protocol. Then transport is the decision why you transported the patient and where you transported them to, and who you turn patient care over to. That is the chart format.
Policy findings mean
Meaning like when you do a patient assessment, something you find that's abnormal, they call that a positive finding. So like, uh-oh, like chest pain is a positive finding. Sweating, like look out, say he's sweating bullets, that's a positive finding that the paramedic completely ignored. You know, grunting respirations like the guy had right before he died, that's a positive finding.
so not like coronavirus stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if she even was on her second day of EMT class, that paramedic should have noticed the diaphoretic sweating and the grunting respirations, just without even having to touch it. Any questions on charts? All right, chronological is the last one you can do. Chronological is simply you document everything in the time format that it happened. Very clear, very concise, very easy. You want to see some examples?
Yes, please.
So I took the same patient and I wrote out, since there's no patient name, you have no idea who it is. I took a patient I had and I wrote it in all three formats so you can see the difference between the formats, all the same patient. All right. 79-year-old male with chest pain. So subjective was dispatched to amend the report of altered level of consciousness. En route, dispatch changes the complaint to cardiac. Objective. Patient presents signature complaint of chest pain provoked arrest in bed at midnight. Unable to give a quality, 8/10 severity, not radiating. Has been steady since midnight. Patient was waiting for pain to go away, but it did not, so he called 911. 12 lead was reported as a negative STLH-MI, which we'll go over later what all that is. Assessment, his Glasgow Coma scale is 15. That means he was alert and oriented to person, place, time, and event. He's got normal, warm, dry skin. His head, eyes, ears, nose, and throat are clear. He's got no jugular vein distension in his neck. His lungs are clear and equal with good tidal volume. His abdomen soft, his pelvis is stable, and his extremities are unremarkable. Plan. Patient given nitroglycerin and aspirin without relief. An IV established, nitro not repeated due to a drop of blood pressure. Patient was taken to the hospital of bed 8 and report to the doctor. That's an example of SOAP. Now let's see the same patient written. So let's see the same one done in chart. Chief complaint was chest pain. History. Patient presents sitting in a chair with complaint of chest pain provoked arrest at midnight. Unable to give quality, 8/10 severity, not rating, has been steady since midnight. Was waiting for pain to go away, but did not, so we called 911. Assessment. Same thing, Glasgow Coma scale is 15. Normal water, dry skin, head, eyes, ears, and throat are clear. No jugular vein distension, lungs are clear and equal, good tidal volume, abdomen soft. Pelvis stable, extremities under remarkable treatment. Was given nitro and aspirin without relief, IV established, nitro not repeated due to his drop in blood pressure. Patient was transported to the hospital due to being the closest and only facility in the region. Taken to bed 8 and report to Dr. Park. So that's the chart format for the exact same patient. Now let's do chronological. 1815, dispatched altered level of consciousness, dispatch advised en route. This is now cardiac. 1823, arrived on scene. 1825, found patient sitting in chair, chief complaint of chest pain. Provoked arrest in bed at midnight, unable to give quality, 8/10 severity, not radiating, been steady since midnight. Patient was waiting for pain to go away, but didn't, so he called 911. 12 lead performed, negative ST elevation MI. Aspirin administrated, extrication begins, nitro given, patient taken to the life support unit, which is an ambulance. 1835, patient is in the life support unit and route to the hospital. Glasgow 15, normal warm dry skin. Head, eyes, ears, nose, throat clear, no jugular vein distension, lungs clear and equal, good tidal volume, abdomen is soft. Pelvis stable, extremities unremarkable. Had no relief for the nitroglycerin or the aspirin. An IV was established. Did not repeat the nitro due to his blood pressure dropped. 1843, arrived at the hospital, patient taken to bed 8, report to we changed the doctor to protect the innocent and the nurse. So you always put the name of who you turn patient care over to so no one can accuse you of abandonment. Chronological is by far the most clear documentation, explains things the best, in my opinion. Yes. That's the military time, 6:15 PM. All medical stuff's done, documented in military time. That way there's no misunderstanding of day versus night. Yes,
In communicating with like the dispatch or the hospital, like is this also being documented, like the updates in real time as you're going to the hospital?
generally you
Or-
give a radio or a cell phone report to the hospital coming in, that is very similar to this, yes.
Okay.
A lot of places, depending on how busy the system is, they may have to just cut the positive findings.
Okay.
Just to keep it short, because there's multiple ambulances coming in. Rural areas like this, you can probably get away with longer. There's nobody else coming. Any questions? That's too hard to read. All right, radio communications. There will be test questions on this. Make sure you know the difference between a base station radio, a mobile radio, and a portable radio. Excuse me. Base station radios are fixed. They're inside of a building. Usually go to a big tower antenna. They can be from 30 watts to 500 watts of power. Mobile radios are in vehicles. They're usually 25 to 100 watts. And portable radios, like what you see here on my vest, they're usually about 5 watts. I don't think anyone's made a 1 watt radio in the last 30 years. Any questions on the different types of radios?
You know the watts.
Nah, not really. Just need to know what the differences. Then we go to the type of radio frequencies. So you got types of radios. So simplex, when you transmit and receive at the same radio frequency. A walkie-talkie. Then you got repeater based. So repeater based is when, it's like, let's say I want to talk, like the dispatch for this county is in Wairika. And I'm in Dunsmere. It's a 5 watt portable radio on my chest going to be able to talk to Wairika. No, not even close. But will a 5 watt radio in Dunsmere heat up, go to a repeater on Soda Ridge? And that Soda Ridge repeater repeats it at 100 watts, would it make it to Wairika? Absolutely. So you have a transmit tone or transmit frequency and a receive frequency. So you transmit on a transmit frequency and it activates a mountaintop tower, which then repeats it on a different frequency or receive frequency at 100 watts power or 500 watts power, and it can go over hundreds of miles. And that's what a repeater based frequency, also known as a duplex frequency. It could be on the test as duplex or repeater based. It transmits on one frequency, receives on another after it's repeated by another tower. Question? Kind of. It gets complicated though, like in this county, for fire and medical dispatch, there's 8 different towers because the county's so big, it's over 6,000 square miles. So you have to have different, what they call PL tones, which activate different mountaintop repeaters. So you have to know what area you're in to get the repeater to work. It's like if you're in Mount Shasta or Dunsmere, you have to be on tone 7 to activate the repeater. If you're north of Black Butte, you need to be on tone 2 or it won't activate the repeater. Then if you're up by Hornbook, you need to be on tone 1. And if you're out the other side of McLeod towards Swandosa, you got to be on tone 6. And if you're up in Dorris, you got to be on tone 8. And if you're going down river towards Happy Camp, you got to be on tone 5. So you got to know your area and know what which tones for which mountaintops to hit when you're using the duplex system. I just did. But no, wherever you go to work, you'll need to know the repeaters and radio systems for the area that you work. For this class, you'd have a base, you need to understand what a duplex or repeater system is versus a simplex system. Now, a digital system is what is everything's eventually going to go to. It's already in place in most places. And a digital system is when everything's done by text message over cellular towers or over a standard radio tower, but instead of voice, it sends it out in data bits and it goes into a computer screen inside the patrol car of the ambulance. Some systems will actually dispatch a center will go right into your patient care report, put your times, and the pickup address goes straight into your computer. Any questions? All right. So yes, you'll have to communicate with dispatch, you'll have to communicate with the hospital, and you'll have to communicate with other agencies. And it's critically important that you always stay professional. Questions? All right, let's do some questions here. You guys got all those?
Yep.
All right, what's the answers? All right, you're transporting a 54-year-old male in cardiac arrest. The first responder is driving the ambulance as you and your partner attempt to do CPR in the back. What is the most logical way to notify the hospital? Yes.
Have the driver use the mobile radio to reach the hospital?
That's a good answer. So we're gonna give you 4 answers. You have to figure out which answer is the best answer. They may all be right, and they may all be wrong. Call the hospital with your cell phone as you're doing CPR. No. Probably not a good answer. Have the driver contact dispatch and relay the patient information to the hospital. Is that a better answer than A?
Yes.
All right, so A's out. We put out its fire. Or its torch, however that, I don't know, much to show. Request a police officer to respond ahead of you and to notify the hospital. Yeah, that's gonna work. Is C a better answer than B? No. Huh, I guess we're not gonna do D. B is the best answer. So that's how you take these tests for critical thinking. You rule out what the best answer is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, you and your partner are attempting to do CPR on a middle-aged female in cardiac arrest. Because of the remote location you're in, you're unable to contact medical control. What should you do? Should you, A, only do CPR and transport? That's not a real answer. How about make continuous attempts to contact medical control? Is that a better answer than A? Absolutely. C, ask the husband if he wants you to resuscitate. Depending on the relationship, is that a better answer than B? No. Now, if you're in the Middle East, you have to. Seriously, I know a lot of paramedics that work in the Middle East. Yes, you have to ask permission to take the wife to the hospital. D, follow locally established protocols or standing orders. Is that a better answer than B?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Offline, standing orders, correct. All right, you guys have done so good tonight. Why don't we go to break until 8 o'clock? Come back in and get ready to learn a whole new batch of skills. You have questions? I have answers. It may not be the right answers, but.
I'm trying to, I got the lecture on YouTube.
Yeah.
Is there any way to access this?
Yeah. So if you go to, it's on your, I emailed it to you. It's in your email. There should be a website. Did I give you the website?
And plus, it's coming up with
So YouTube channel, yeah. Other stuff online, click here for the website. YouTube has some resources. That website has got every one of the PowerPoints on it. I don't update it as much as I should, but it's got everything. Yeah, did you get the
We
email?
found it. It's
Under other stuff online, it says click here for website needs to update, but it has some resources. All my PowerPoints. Yeah. I'm ready.
So with the missing a class and it falls on the test day.
Make the test up later.
Okay, so later.
What happens, everybody else go to skills, I'll put you in a room and they take the test. But you can't miss one or two.
I know, this is required report. So
Right.
Gotta be on board, okay.
No, you're not a student. Well, you are a student, but not this. You're a student anymore. Good job for that. You're not taught hero. You didn't even know. Taught hero eyes.
Hey? Not you. Not you.
Yes, Talking Hero though, right now is a firefighter EMT drives ambulance in Washington. DC. And gets to get on the presidential details. He's done real. Yeah, he was from, his dad was a San Mateo PD. He came up here from the fire academy, he was 18, he was way too young. And he took the class, he failed it, he came out the next semester, took it, passed it, then never took the test. Then had to take it again and passed it, then never took the test, then took it again. And then by the time he was like 24, he finally took the national register test like 6 years later. He'd taken the class like 6 times. He had it down. And he started over at iTech 19 before this building was even built. Then finally, when he passed, it was in here. Jesus.
That's it.
Emily took it twice. Didn't send in record, she took it before she was old enough to take the class. Or old enough to take the test. Then took it again. Emily didn't do nearly as well the second time. She was number one in the class for 16. She took it again at 17, so she could take the national birthday. But she didn't do nearly as well. She still got an A, but she was like second or third.
14, 16, 19. That's the first one.
I'm gonna help you. Give you the wrong one. Well, I didn't give you the wrong one. That would be Anne Marie. That would be Anne Marie. So do you know how to get a hold of Anne Marie? Can I show you? I'll show you where Anne Marie's office is. You come to the campus of the A guy? All right, I'll show you what it was. A little bit after 8, I said, let there be light.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah, that was the plan. It's been a year. I got this. How long did you like? 10 months. Yeah.
I don't remember opening that door.
For like 30+ years. Didn't have a great job. It wasn't a bad job. You gotta go to the library. I got one law. I hear from them. Yeah. I've been told. I don't know if that's what I hear.
They require you as well?
No, just need to print some shit.
Watch your mouth, Brian.
The entire industry is pie nuts.
You guys ruined it.
And now we corrupted you. Nice young Tom Cruise looking kid from Manton. Corrupted him. Almost a drink now. Don't get yourself in trouble now. You're old enough to drink.
Warehouse looking thing. They work with. They have all.
ABC, Jamie, and cardiac arrest carry out. Area district. Medical. That's one
Okay.
Spinal mobilization.
Yeah.
So there was a one bed. Did they fix the printer yet? Yeah.
I was working today.
Prince?
I was here. I drove through the Shasta. I'm driving through. I want to say maybe cold white beige.
Got Fred my pizza.
I was like fire. I was like fire.
Yeah, I was at the
I got fire. We went down. Up over the hill, drop down. But now, I mean, now he's on 3. He's a PI. Fire.
Not anymore.
That was great.
They got over it.
It was working for us.
Maybe not. Is it CTEC?
It's one of those things. I mean, even in San Francisco, those guys average like 3 structure fires a year now. He's doing very residents. I think residents have all those structure fires. No, it's just it's one of those things, you know, that fire prevention technology is just better. It's better get you guys more cost effective. Yeah, just traffic.
Turn into a curve. Oh, man, smart. That program.
Yeah,
Make one. And 107. There you go.
We're just second.
107. Oh.
Fire. One of the trucks. Trail going on. Crazy. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I mean, it's no. I mean, now it's a couple years ago from the Santa Rosa fires. The Santa Rosa fire. That was interesting. That was interesting. No, I thought it was good. No. All right, today is 8.
Yeah.
Wait, are you doing the?
Housing prices are down.
You're
So then just go for a full-time firefighter then. You can't burn. It's a good question. Halfway up, walls and Well, that.